Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. I'm the political and government host for Western Wisconsin Journal. Today I have two guests that are here. We're going to have them introduce themselves, but we have Pat Dowd and Trevor Cyphers, and they're from the Army Corps of Engineers. And today we're going to talk about a major project that's gotten a fair amount of press lately. And it's been a project that's been talked about for years now in the making. We'll talk about the background and so forth, but let's, gentlemen, start out with, your backgrounds and who you are and why you're here. So start with you, Pat.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us here, Jamie. I guess, don't know how far to go back, but I was born in Duluth, so, not too far away from here. Went to school in Wisconsin, Madison, and moved
Go Badgers.
Yeah, absolutely. And moved to the Twin Cities area for this job, was it 9 years ago now, and have, become the lead engineer on this project.
On this particular project, like what area do you cover? You say you moved here about 9 years ago for this job, so what area do you cover?
Our office covers everything from roughly Iowa, north to the Boundary Waters, half of North Dakota, half of Wisconsin, essentially anything that kind of drains down to the Mississippi or up to the Arctic, in a sense. And so I guess my background is really like water engineering, river engineering. And so,
what was your major at Wisconsin?
Yeah, civil engineering.
Okay.
So that's kind of like umbrella for anything that involves like infrastructure or waterways. Ecosystem restoration too isn't like a big part of that too these days. Environmental engineering. So
it sounds like you might have taken a few biology classes.
Yeah, several. Yeah.
All right. And so speaking of biology, then we have Trevor Cyphers. Trevor, what's your background in?
Yeah, so I'm a fisheries biologist with the Army Corps of Engineers. I grew up in southeastern Minnesota, south of Rochester. And I went to school at Winona State for an undergrad in ecology. And then I went and got a master's degree from University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in aquatic science. From there, I got a job with the Fish and Wildlife Service and did a lot of stuff with invasive carp. Did that for about 4 years. I worked in La Crosse, and then I did Chicago area for a couple of years doing that, and then I got this position here with the Army Corps about 8 years ago, and I've been enjoying it ever since.
So did you switch jobs because you were tired of that invasive carp? And
it got a little monotonous, but to be honest, my wife wanted to move back to Minnesota and be closer to family, so I looked for other jobs.
But that invasive carp, folks local here are familiar with that.
It's a big issue too. So
yeah, and I know Chicago was a huge issue. So,
yeah.
But anyway, so you guys have a great background and in the area of our, waterways and projects involving that. So the other thing is you're both employees of the Army Corps of Engineers, and we talked a little bit off camera about that and how I've got. From a job 40 years ago, had some exposure working with the Army Corps of Engineers, but there's actually two sections. One is more regulatory, and then that's the one that I dealt with, which, with government comes regulation, right?
Right.
But tell us a little bit about the section you guys are from.
Yeah, so we, I guess outside of regulatory at our St. Paul office, we mainly focus on like civilian infrastructure. So both Trevor and I are on lots of projects involving that essentially. So you might be familiar with the locks and dams going up and down the Mississippi. So a lot of our staff are focused on, maintaining those, updating them.
Right now, Army Corps is heavily involved in one of the locks down by La Crosse right now.
Yeah, that's a big project there, making it safer to navigate through there.
Okay,
so.
Well that makes sense. So the Army Corps of Engineers it makes it sound like it's military associated, but it's really I don't know where that came.
That's a common question too. Like, I'll go to a career fair and I'll get I'll always get a couple students who come up and are like, "How do I join the military?" Or asking like, "Oh, do I have to join the military?" And,
go through basic training.
Yeah. And I think it's 99% of us are civilians. it started out like 1775 was when the Army Corps was formed, and back then your only engineers were part of the military essentially, and so back then there were colonel, general, like go make this navigable, go like help the nation in that sense, and I guess it was never broken, so it just kind of stayed in the military, that whole system too.
Well, I mean, we've had the Industrial Revolution in that involved in that time period, in the late 18th century. I mean, the idea of having bridges and dams has been around for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. So essentially, that business, it's always going to be there, and we've got great waterways here, bodies of water, and you're both your careers revolve around those. So now let's bring it down to this River Falls project, which is Kinnickinnic River. First of all, for those that haven't heard about Kinnickinnic River, can you tell us where it starts, where its headwaters are, and the watershed area that it involves before it empties into, is it the St. Croix or the Mississippi?
Yeah, St. Croix.
St. Croix, all right.
So on the upper St. Croix, you have a lot of different tributaries that are coming into it and feeding into it.
Right.
And then it comes to River Falls, where you have currently 2 dams, Junction Falls, which creates Lake George, a reservoir. And then below that you have Powell Falls Dam, which right now isn't inundated, so there is no longer a Lake Louise. But then below that you have the Lower Kinni, and then that feeds through Kinnickinnic State Park and then goes into the St. Croix, which then feeds into the Mississippi River a couple miles down.
So essentially Kinnickinnic flows east to west, right? Roughly?
Yeah, I'd say northeast to southwest, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
And you referred to an upper and a lower, and just for people who aren't local, where does the river falls? I'm familiar with the city of River Falls and the dam that's there.
Yeah, so anything above River Falls and that Lake George is basically referred to the upper Kinnickinnic, and then anything below River Falls and that Powell Falls Dam is the lower Kinni.
Okay. And so those dams, a lot of great rivers, including the Willow River, had dams put on it in the 19th century to generate electricity when that got started, and the early 20th century. A lot of dams are aging and ultimately failing. Folks can probably Google it. We did a show probably within the last decade. I say that things that happened 8 years ago were actually 13 years ago, but nonetheless, it was about the Willow River. And so I think a lot of our viewers will remember that project, which was heavily involved as a DNR project with legislature really delegating funds to that and expanding the project or determining its scope at least. So on this one, how is this one different? Let's talk about the origins of why we're talking about removing dams and restoring the Kinni Corridor, if you will, because that's what the project's called, is the Kinni Corridor, right?
Well, I think there's this larger, broader idea, like the Kinni Corridor, and what this whole area could be that is outside of this project too. But yeah, I mean, we call it like the Kinni feasibility study in our world.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I guess.
But was there an event that started it? I know there's always been a kind of a movement as dams were aging, it kind of, to remove dams, restore things to the way they were, 150 years ago.
Yeah, there was a group, a vocal group in River Falls too. I think, and the city council too ended up agreeing with the group, but at least look at what this could look like, without the 2 dams, this whole area. Right. What would restoration look like in this area? So. Around 2020, the city was working on a relicensing process, so making it so these 2 hydroelectric dams could continue producing.
Yeah, so dams have to be
power.
Licensed, and they got to pass inspections and so forth. So what happened around that time?
And so the Army Corps was, assisting with that a little bit too, and then that's around that time a relatively, large flood I mean, has like a 10% chance of occurring every year, but actually damaged Powell Falls to the point where they didn't know if they could have the lake full anymore and produce hydroelectricity there. So they ended up draining Lake Louise, like Trevor mentioned. And
Again, that would be part of the lower, right?
yeah, I'd say lower, like below
like
the South Fork.
The middle part.
Yeah, sure, the middle part. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But
And
maybe we should step back. Like I know back in 2017, the city itself, did a feasibility study looking
That's
at
what
the
I remember,
removal of
yeah.
the dams, right?
8 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, already 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And they, had a full-blown feasibility study, and then from there, the city council determined that they wanted to remove the dam. So that's where that all kind of started, right?
Right. But
And
then
then-
it gets accelerated once you have an event like this, right?
Right, and then funding, it's like how do we remove these dams? How do we fund it? So that's why the Corps is kind of involved.
Tell us
because-
about this, the
Yeah.
Corps' project, not just specific to this project, but in general, what do you
Right.
offer for projects like this?
Yeah, so this project is under the CAP project, or Continuing Authorities Program. Specifically, it's a 206 project, so it's aquatic restoration. So we can take funding up to $15 million and cost share it with the city as long as it deals with restoration of aquatic habitat.
So it's 15 million of federal dollars.
Federal dollars, yes.
And then you look for at least 25% contribution from the local.
35.
35.
35.
Yeah.
In this case, is it that along those lines, or is it a 50-50, the feasibility?
So I want to say the feasibility study itself is 50-50 cost share, and then once you get into construction, it's 65-35. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where my confusion was.
No, no worries.
So, but these things, I mean, it's not like you just snap your fingers and dams are removed, right?
Right.
It's a major study and then getting everybody on board, right?
Right. Well, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of design, and then I guess where our feasibility study comes in essentially is like, well, is this feasible, or what would it take to make this feasible, and then is it enough bang for the buck for the federal government to be involved from our perspective, as far as like what ecosystem restoration benefits you get per dollar spent, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the program that exists. This is what you guys do for a living and do on a daily basis. But let's talk about the impacts for, let's say, aquatic life, trout population, and so forth. That's kind of more your area.
Right, yeah, and that's kind of like how one of the main problems with the current dam, right,
Okay.
at Junction Falls is, you have Kinnickinnic River is a Class 1 trout stream, so that's the highest designation it can have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like premium trout habitat.
Right.
Upstream and downstream, it has some of the highest density brown trout in the state, if not the nation. So it's an important resource, right?
Right. A lot of fly fishermen. go
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of interest. And then, like with trout, they're a cold water species, so they need cold water to thrive and survive. So once you get higher temperatures, right around that 72-degree mark, that's when you get stress for trout. So
And, and what would cause a river's temperature to go up if?
right,
there
in this
dams?
case, you have an impoundment in Lake George. It's shallow. It's a lot of surface area. So from there, the water kind of stops and is stagnant. And then you get that sun beating down, and then the temperature increases.
But these
And this-
dams have been around for decades, and so
Right, and this has already been a problem, and it's been documented in a 2017 report. And it was even worse with both of the dams in place. So then you really had those higher temperatures that were problematic to the overall population of the trout downstream.
all right.
Even with just Junction Falls in place, it's still a concern. If you get that hot summer days, it could get up to that 72 mark or higher. And if you get that for a prolonged period, you could have like death.
So is Powell Falls Dam already gone?
So the Powell Falls Dam is still there, so it's just the opening of the gate is just allowing water to go through. So that area between Junction Falls and Powell Falls is kind of acting like a river already. It's
Okay.
starting to
Because
meander.
you were all
already.
right. Because you were talking like it's past tense, but it's still there.
The
It's
dam
just that
itself is
it's
there.
Not, it's not. There's not the big impoundment
Right.
that's happening between those two dams.
Yep.
Okay, got it. All right. So, can you explain in more detail the ecological significance?
Sure. So with that increased temperature from junction falls in place in the summer, you could get die-off of trout potentially if it gets hot enough. And then you're not only talking about trout, right? There's a whole food web downstream. You got macroinvertebrates that also required cold water and high dissolved oxygen. So really it's an overall problem that really needs to be restored, right? You need to, it's a cold water stream. It should, in theory, be a cold water stream again.
Okay. Well, now the plan, includes the creation of a wetland habitat. That always intrigues me. How do you create a wetland out of something that's not a wetland?
Sure. I'll take that one too. So these wetlands, like we're going to get there by earthwork, right? So we're going to dig down to the water table, and they're going to be designed to be at least 6 inches in depth and be classified as a shallow marsh habitat, right? So then they're going to have emergent vegetation, native ones like bulrush, cattails, arrowhead, and other native grasses, right? And then with that, you're going to get native animals, right? So you'll have local amphibians, frogs, turtles, small mammals, muskrats.
Are they imported from other areas?
No, they're going to go, right? They're going to come there. You make
Okay.
that. So like I work a lot
Build
in
it and they will come.
Exactly. You took my line.
All right.
So I look a lot of restoration projects on the Mississippi River as well. So that's under the Upper Mississippi River UMRR.
Restoration.
Yeah, Upper Mississippi River Restoration Program. And with there, we have a saying, you build it and the animals will come.
Okay.
So with these marshes, I mean, hopefully it's going to be habitat that's similar to Lake George, but almost better because it's going to be hopefully cleaner water and have those emergent vegetation. There's going to be an area for waterfowl as well as songbirds. So really we're not losing those animals as well.
Are these wetlands, is this basically take the place of where the lake was, or?
They're a lot smaller
Part
than
of
the
it.
lakes.
Okay.
Yeah, so as much, where it's feasible anyways. Yeah, for in a nutshell. The rest of that area though, so you would have like a free-flowing river that goes back through the center of those lakes more or less. And then aside from the wetlands, we're also looking at just like restored forest habitat. It's kind of our thought at the moment.
Okay.
And then that forest habitat along the stream, it helps cool down the stream as well. So
Okay, you were
provide
talking about the
shade.
animals or the turtles and frogs and so forth.
Sure.
But how about the plant life? How does that change over time, or again, something that has to be physically
So
planted?
for like the wetland in general, those can be like plugged with native plants, or there should be a seed bank as well. So we're hoping that they'll just kind of generate themselves and come through,
Okay.
providing the right depth and habitat. And then once those are created, they're fairly sustainable. They're self-sustaining ecosystems. So they're low maintenance. And then you might get some succession or change in plant community over time, but with those wetlands, you expect that to happen. So it's not a concern if you...
What kind of dollars are we talking about to do this project? It's more than just the physical removal of the dam, but the others, and talk about dollars and time. It's always about time and money, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of time will it take to complete this? And is it all a go, or is there still opportunity for public comment and have it move forward, or is it already approved?
Yeah, well, so the public comment period already went through, but for the feasibility study, and so we're hoping to wrap that up before the end of September here. At that point, it'll be up to the city really to decide if they would like to move forward.
So there is a decision that still has to be done by the city.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's that cost share component. Like
And
we
I
were
started
talking
the
about.
question about dollars, and then I changed it. I'm sorry about that.
No.
But what are we talking for anticipated costs? It's always estimate high, and then you hope it comes in under, right?
Yeah, which is kind of where we're at now. You remember an
I
exact
think
dollar
it's
amount?
right around 22 million or just under 22 million
Yeah.
total. And that's including, planning, engineering, and design, as well as the construction itself.
But with your $15 million cap from the federal government, if it did go over 22 million, then that's where River Falls would have to step up, because the federal government wouldn't go over its 15 million.
Right. Yeah.
And River Falls, my understanding is that they may be getting some help from the DNR, because there's always crossover between different levels of agencies, right? So
Yeah, and we've been working with them too throughout the project. But yeah, the city has approached the DNR for grant opportunities. Essentially, I believe they received at least one. I want to say for $1 million. Don't quote me on that, but
okay.
yeah.
Well, that's, I wasn't, it wasn't fair to say, line item stuff. But,
Right.
Oh yeah.
But it's because when you say you're completing the feasibility, I guess I was going off a summary of a video. By the way, I couldn't watch your video, I'm sorry, but had a computer glitch. Didn't have the right software to watch it. But you had a big public information meeting about the Kinni Corridor Project.
Yep.
Right.
And is there a place people can go and look at that? Because we're limited on our time here about what we talk about, but.
Right. I think the city of River Falls has it on their YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah. We
So-
also have our whole report up on our website.
What website? Tell our viewers about where they could find that.
Just the St. Paul District's Army Corps webpage, I'm fairly certain. Yeah, probably be easier if you search like Kinni, dam removal, Army Corps.
Of Engineers,
Yeah.
Okay, Army Corps of Engineers, and so we'll do that. Now, so we're talking about a wetland habitat, and you talked about the plant and animal life. 3 acres, that's roughly the size of 3 football fields, right? Is that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. But this is where the marsh would actually be, right? It's not like there's going to be parking lot that's going to surround this wetland.
No. And like I mentioned, under the CAP authority, the 206 Authority Aquatic Restoration, we have to restore the area to something that is looking like aquatic restoration. So that's what our vision is, a restored stream with a riparian corridor, and that includes wetland.
And this project isn't being forced on any property owners. These are people who want this, right?
Yeah.
And this is owned by the city. All the property
Okay.
within the project area is owned by the cities. So it's not like private property.
It's
that
not
we're
like
changing.
eminent domain is
Right,
coming in.
that's not
and taking
happening.
this over.
No.
Okay. So we talked about the different species. I don't know if you got into, there was a big word here, macroinvertebrate, and I know what amphibian is, but
Right.
macroinvertebrate, what does that include?
So those are basically bugs, right? Insects that live in the water.
Okay.
And that can also include like arthropods. There's like small little shrimp called scuds. That also
Biology
works,
wasn't
right?
my strong point. So, all right.
So yeah, I mean those are like all the different organisms that live
Sure.
in the benthic area, the bottom of the river. And trout need those to survive. That's what they primarily feed on, right? So
Yeah, to me that stuff is fascinating, but it's an area where a lot of non-scientists, non-biology folks take things for granted, right?
Right.
They just figure bugs and aquatic life is just there, but
Right.
It is something that can, if it's not managed right, can go away in a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are it says specific biological metrics that your team used to define and then measure the success of this project? Because it's a long-term project.
Yeah. That's
right,
totally Trevor question.
that's in my wheelhouse. So with all these restoration projects, the Corps does, we have a monitoring aspect to it, right? We need to determine success of this project, and we do that through monitoring.
Okay.
And a lot of those monitoring tasks are specifically geared to the objectives of the project. So like the Kinni, our main objective is to restore the stream to a cold water stream and then provide habitat for those cold water species, in this case trout. So two of the main monitoring objectives geared towards that, is looking at water quality to assure, we have that cool water as well as dissolved oxygen, and then to look at seeing if the trout are taking up that area or looking at the new
Are there
restored stream.
devices that actually measure how many fish there are and stuff?
Well, that's all by backpack electroshocking. So you got the Wisconsin DNR will go in there and shock the stream. It doesn't kill the fish or anything, just stuns them. And then they measure them and get species, and then they put them back, and then you have an idea of how much.
And I take it that's not done
population.
frequently or anything like that, but periodically.
Well, I mean, for this, I envision they're going to probably do that on a yearly basis.
Annual, okay.
Yep, and then so that monitoring aspect I mentioned, the Corps is on the hook for, is like 10 years.
10 years, okay.
So we monitor the project for 10 years, and not only is it we're looking at like water quality or the trout themselves, we're looking at the trees that we planted on the riparian corridor we talked about and making sure they're surviving and growing as they should. And then if we look at all the data that we've collected and then see that we're matching those objectives, then we call the project a success, and then we turn it over to the non-federal sponsor, in this case, River Falls.
Okay, again, the city of River Falls owns the land where all this is
Yep.
occurring, but, and that's why it's a decision ultimately, once to pull the trigger is River Falls.
Right.
It's not the federal government coming in and saying, you got to do this.
No, yeah, it's up, up to
up to
River
the city.
Falls at the end of the day if they want to partner with us and doing that final design and construction.
Okay. So let's see, how does this project then build resilience into the Kinni River ecosystem? You know, when we have pressures like climate change and so forth, that has actually been able to be, you know, felt and observed, you know, in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, that's a great question too, and I think one of the main, it could be a big benefit from this project. So like, just this last century, we've already seen like temperatures increase in this area about like 2 degrees a year, and you know, depending on like global policy decisions now, essentially, and going forward, it could increase another 1 to 10 degrees from there. So it's quite a range of potential futures we're looking at.
Right.
But it's not a one-to-one relationship with like it gets hot and then the stream
Right.
gets exactly that much hotter. But like Trevor mentioned, that trout require temperatures to be cold enough. So I guess like we want to like. And that he also mentioned the lakes, or Lake George heating up the river in a sense. So removing that removes the potential for that to heat up more with temperatures increasing essentially. So and then with a free-flowing river that's fed by groundwater, we'd expect that to stay viable for trout habitat for the foreseeable future essentially.
So you mentioned the 10-year time frame of monitoring, but how long will it take to physically remove Powell's Falls and Junction Falls, and what order will it be done?
Yeah.
Sure. I think if we move in to planning and engineering design, that's roughly a year and a half, and then like construction, I think, would be roughly 2 to 3 years.
Okay, would it start in the fall, or is it something that this is a spring?
So
Right, and all this is going to get hashed out further in that planning and engineering design. That's where we really like dig into the weeds and get everything finalized and figured out. Because at this point we're at feasibility, which is like roughly 20 to 25% of a design.
Okay. Oh, that's all?
Yeah,
So
that's
still
all.
They got another 75% to design.
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So that's why we're talking, this isn't something that's going to happen in 26.
No.
No.
Because we're already in August of 2025, so we're looking at 2027, 28 more likely.
I think that's a more likely time frame, yeah.
Okay. And once you actually have it designed and the removal process starts, like how long would that take for people to see the dam one day and then the next time they see it, it's completely gone?
Yeah, it's not, I guess, something you do every day, like breaking up a road or and
Right.
repairing that. So it's kind of a unique project, but I'd say certainly less than a construction season, I would think, for folks to come in with those, I guess, jackhammers, essentially, and what I would assume would be how a contractor would break it up. And
since we're only at 25%, you can't, I know, pinpoint all these markers and time milestones, but would it be a little more likely that Powell's Falls gets removed before Junction Falls, or do I have that backwards?
Well, I think in our feasibility report, we thought of removing Junction first and kind of using Powell Falls to catch some of that suspended sediments that would come out of lowering Lake George. So use it as a catch basin essentially, so you're not having all that sediment move into the lower Kinni.
I see.
So then that also inundates the area. You get rid of some of the reed canary grass and non-natives that have since established themselves in that Lake Louise basin.
Yeah.
And then
So this is going to have potentially a great impact on the ecological system there.
oh yeah, for sure.
So that's why you want to do it with having as little impact as possible. So if
Yep.
people want to know the details, then that's where they should read the feasibility study.
Yes.
And we mentioned how they can, the feasibility study is commented on in this video, correct? The video, the Kinni Corridor Project.
Well, we had a public comment period earlier this summer. So unfortunately, folks, if you missed the boat on that, that's I guess that was the period. You're more up to date on that.
That's
than
where
I
people
am,
can get
but-
input, but if people just
Yeah.
want to get information, get caught up to speed,
Right.
Yeah.
that's what would they look at?
Yeah, like the YouTube video that the City of River Falls has, like of our public meetings. There's our report too on our website. Or those are great spots to look for information on this.
All right. Very good. And I guess, is there anything more that we didn't touch on? Because I see that we've blown through our half hour, but is there anything else that folks should know about this? And, before we end this segment, so. Have we covered everything?
I think we've covered it really well, but I think the city and the local community is really excited about this project, and they've been waiting a long time to see this happen.
Right.
And I think it's a great project, so hopefully it does happen. And
Well, good to see that it's
love to see
being
it
well
move forward.
planned out. It's
Right.
not something that's being rushed into.
no, we've been working on this now for at least a year and a half, and Pat and I put a lot of effort and time into it, so we want to see it done and done well. So
Is there anybody they could email if, after they look at the report, they had questions? How do people ask if they're curious?
I mean, they could probably email our district. We have like a public affairs office.
Yeah,
And you
Okay.
could email them if they have questions, and
they could direct
Get
it
in
to
touch
the
with-
best folks to answer that.
yeah, either myself or Pat or anyone else on the team.
Very good.
So.
Well, Pat, Trevor, I want to thank you for coming on the show and giving us information about this project. And I hope to have both of you back here in a couple years when it's about ready to start. How's that
That'd
sound?
be awesome.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks again. And thank you for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. Keep watching.